On April 28, 1869, crews building the Transcontinental Railroad laid 10 miles and 56 feet of track in a single day. That's 4,462,000 pounds of materials. Chinese workers, many recruited from southern China, made up as much as 90% of the Central Pacific's construction workforce. They drove 15 tunnels through the Sierra Nevada, totaling 6,213 feet. Summit Tunnel alone ran 1,695 feet through solid granite. How long have you been at this cut?
Since before sunrise.
And how far do you move in a day?
Some days, a few feet. Some days, the mountain gives us nothing.
Powder! Clear the bay!
This is the part the celebration photographs do not show you. The 4.4 million pound number is enormous. The material list makes it physical. That day required 3,520 iron rails. Each rail averaged approximately 560 pounds. Crews also positioned 25,800 wooden ties, drove 55,080 spikes, and installed 14,050 bolts. And the route was not completely straight. Where the line curved, rails had to be placed across blocks and hammered into the correct shape before they could be installed. 8 Irish rail handlers worked at the advancing front. Behind and around them, thousands of Chinese workers distributed ties and rails, drove spikes, joined the track, tamped the roadbed, and kept the supply trains moving. The operation began at 5 in the morning. It continued until 7 that night. How much does one of those weigh?
560 pounds.
And how many today?
3,520. Keep it moving.
A reporter for the San Francisco Bulletin watched a working line of approximately 1,000 men advancing across the ground. An army officer compared it to an army marching over the land and leaving a railroad behind it. The newspaper called it the greatest work in track laying ever accomplished or conceived by railroad men. The speed was remarkable. The organization behind it was even more remarkable. The Central Pacific did not begin with enough workers to cross the Sierra. In January 1865, Construction Superintendent James Strobridge advertised for 5,000 permanent laborers and experienced foremen. Only a few hundred came. Charles Crocker later said the company rarely maintained more than about 800 Euro-American laborers working with picks and shovels. Many stayed only briefly before leaving for Nevada's silver mines. The company began hiring Chinese workers already living in California. Then labor contractors recruited additional workers from southern China. Many came from the Xi region of Guangdong province, particularly Taishan, Kaiping, Xinhui, and Enping. These areas had experienced poverty, conflict, and civil unrest. Men boarded ships for California hoping to earn enough money to support themselves and their families. The Central Pacific initially questioned whether Chinese workers could perform the heavy labor. That doubt disappeared quickly. The workers graded roadbeds, built retaining walls, handled explosives, constructed trestles, worked as masons and carpenters, drove tunnels, moved supplies, and followed the end of the track across the west. During peak construction, their numbers reached between 10 and 15,000. The total employed over the project may have approached 20,000, yet no known letter, diary, or memoir written by one of the Chinese workers survives. Their story has been reconstructed from payrolls, engineering reports, company testimony, newspapers, photographs, archaeological evidence, and family histories. Laying track was only the final step. First, crews had to create a place where a railroad could exist. They cleared trees, graded slopes, built fills, raised trestles, constructed retaining walls, and removed enormous quantities of rock. A blast hole began with a long steel drilling bar. One worker held and slightly rotated it against the granite. Another strikes the blunt end with a heavy hammer. Strike, turn, strike again. When the hole was deep enough, drilling stopped. A powder worker loaded black powder, positioned a fuse, packed the hole, and cleared the crew away before ignition. The charge fractured part of the rock. The rubble was removed. Then the entire process began again. At Cape Horn, a mostly Chinese workforce spent approximately a year cutting a 3-mile roadbed around a steep mountainside. The work site stood roughly 1,200 feet above the North Fork of the American River. Chief Engineer Samuel Montague described sections of the slope as approximately 75 degrees, nearly perpendicular. Hundreds of kegs of black powder were used to create a ledge wide enough for the railroad. Accounts describe workers using ropes tied around their waists and leaning against bosun's chairs on steep sections. Later stories also describe baskets, but historians disagree over whether the famous basket accounts accurately describe Cape Horn itself. The exact support method remains debated. The roadbed does not. The crews created a 3-mile ledge where no railroad path had existed before. The hardest of the Sierra tunnels was number 6, Summit Tunnel. Crews initially worked inward from its eastern and western entrances, but the granite yielded so slowly that the Central Pacific created 2 additional working faces inside the mountain. A stripped-down locomotive was hauled to the summit. Workers then sank a vertical shaft toward the center of the future tunnel.
How deep does that go?
73 feet.
They lower men through there?
Men go down, granite comes up. Now we can work in 4 directions.
Workers advanced from the east portal, from the west portal, and from the center outward toward both ends. The company also experimented with nitroglycerin. It was more powerful than black powder, but it was dangerously unstable and soon abandoned. Management then arranged a competition between experienced Cornish miners and Chinese crews working in opposite directions. Their progress was measured every Sunday. Crocker later testified that the Chinese crews repeatedly removed more rock. He called the work steady pounding on the rock, bone labor. The tunnel was not opened by one enormous explosion. It was opened through repeated cycles: drill, load, clear, blast, remove the broken rock, and begin again. Then the weather became another engineering problem. The winter of 1866 to 1867 brought 44 recorded storms. Snow at the summit averaged 18 feet. The total snowfall reached approximately 40 feet. Tunnel entrances vanished behind drifts. Workers dug passageways through the snow simply to reach the mountain work site.
How far does this passage go?
500 feet.
Through the mountain?
No, this is only to reach the mountain.
After reaching the entrance, the men still had to complete their regular shifts inside the granite tunnel. They ate and rested inside what contemporary accounts described as white ice caves. Avalanches destroyed camps. James Strobridge recalled that some buried workers were not found until the snow melted the following summer. One account reported 20 men killed in a single avalanche. Once the track opened, protecting it required another massive construction project. The Central Pacific covered 37 miles of track with wooden snowsheds across a 40-mile stretch. The finished system consumed approximately 65 million feet of 12 by 14-inch timber. It required 900 tons of iron for bolts and spikes. 6 trains carried material. An estimated 2,500 laborers worked on the project. The sheds cost more than $2 million in 1860s money. Engineers complained that traveling through them felt like railroading inside a barn. Others called the system the longest barn in the world. The surviving record also preserves more personal details: what the workers ate. Chinese laborers generally paid for their own food. Their work gangs hired cooks and bought supplies from merchants who followed the advancing track. Traveler Charles Nordhoff recorded what he saw in the camps: rice, tea, dried fish, dried oysters, dried cuttlefish, bamboo shoots, salted cabbage, seaweed, vermicelli, dried mushrooms, peanut oil, Chinese bacon, dried fruit and vegetables, pork when available, and poultry on holidays. Some ingredients came from California. Others crossed the Pacific before being carried into remote mountain and desert camps.
You carry this out to the crews?
All day, boiled tea.
That is better than warm creek water.
Tea carriers moved through construction sites pouring boiled tea from small kegs. Camp cooks also heated water so workers could wash after their shifts. Many Euro-American camps relied heavily on meat, potatoes, and whiskey. Chinese crews ate a wider variety of preserved foods and drank tea and hot water. Contemporary observers believed the use of boiled water helped reduce dysentery and other camp illnesses. Many work gangs also employed a Chinese medical practitioner.
休息一下，喝这个。好，我听你的。
Some workers required in their contracts that a Chinese physician remain nearby. The railroad depended on more than men holding hammers. It depended on cooks, tea carriers, doctors, merchants, interpreters, headmen, and an entire support system moving with the line. When large-scale Chinese hiring began in 1865, workers earned $26 per month for a 6-day work week. Tunnel workers could receive $1 additional. Chinese workers generally worked longer hours and paid their headmen or contractors for food and lodging. Euro-American workers received higher pay, with food and accommodations supplied by the company. By the spring of 1867, Chinese wages had risen to $35 a month. The workers demanded $40. They also demanded a reduction from 11 working hours per day to 10 and shorter shifts inside the tunnels. On June 25th, several thousand workers put down their tools.
What are they asking for?
$40, 10 hours, shorter tunnel shifts. Until then, the mountain waits.
Grading stopped. Tunneling stopped. The camps remained peaceful and organized. Crocker later said the railroad became like Sunday all along the work. The strike threatened the Central Pacific because government support depended on completed mileage. Crocker responded by cutting off food and other supplies. After 8 days, provisions were running low. Crocker, Strobridge, the local sheriff, and a group of deputized men confronted the workers' leaders.
We will not work for
The
less.
company rejected the demands. Facing hunger and threats, the workers returned. As the railroad crossed Nevada, the camps moved with it. At Winnemucca, observers described 3 sprawling Chinese camps with 275 tents. The work was organized by squads: headmen, cooks, physicians, interpreters, teamsters, explosives workers, masons, graders, and track crews. Even payday moved with the line. A paymaster arrived by wagon with guards and interpreters. The company often did not record each man's name. It counted the workers by squad, morning, midday, and at day's end. Money for each gang was dropped into a worker's hat with a statement written in Chinese. The headmen divided it among the crew. The railroad knew how many men were building. It did not preserve who most of them were. On May 10, 1869, the Central Pacific and Union Pacific met at Promontory Summit. But before the speeches, before the ceremonial spikes, before the famous photograph, ordinary work still had to be finished. That morning, 8 Chinese workers moved the final Central Pacific rail into place. The locomotives waited. Officials gathered. Telegraph wires stood ready to carry the news. Then the ceremony began. The photograph remembered the celebration, but the railroad was completed before the camera was ready. The achievement was real. A trip across the continent that once took months could now take about a week. Mail, passengers, food, livestock, machinery, and information moved at a new speed. The railroad even changed time itself. In 1883, railroad clocks helped divide the country into standardized time zones. But the line also crossed the homelands of many tribal nations. Rail service brought settlement, pressure on land and water, and new conflict over the West. The railroad made distances smaller. Its consequences were much larger. Today, a train can pass through a mountain, and most of us barely think about what it took to build the railroad. We see the rails, but not the hammer striking drill steel, not the powder worker loading the granite, not the snow passage dug just to reach another shift, not the tea carrier walking through camp, not the silent strike, and not the names that were never entered into the company records. The Transcontinental Railroad was real progress, but the closer you look, the less it becomes one golden moment. It becomes thousands of smaller ones. And history is not only the photograph, it is everything that had to happen before the photograph was taken. Stay curious, my friends. I'll see you on the next one.